Alrighty, for my Otis Award, I chose The Family Romanov, The Murder, Rebellion, and Fall of Imperial Russia. It is written by Candace Fleming. There isn't an actual illustrator, however, there are several pictures throughout the whole novel that they have like little notation writing like who took that picture and whatnot. The total length of the book is 253 pages. That's not including the bibliography, the index, the footnotes, all that kind of jazz that she put into it. The genre is nonfiction, history, biography, obviously. The publisher is Schwartz and Wade, and the copyright date is 2014. As for the age range, I put this more as like 14 to 16, just because I feel like it is pretty in-depth, and you kind of need to know the history of Russia before reading this, otherwise you might be a tad lost. As for the summary of the novel, it takes place during Imperial Russia, obviously, during the Romanov rule, and it's split up into 4 parts, actually, which I really like. So she has, like, the contents right here, and she has it split. So part 1 is Before the Storm, which is kind of focusing on Tsar Nicholas when he's younger and kind of courting his wife Alex, and his early years as ruling, when he has marriage, when he has his kids, how they struggled with having a son, and kind of also focuses on kind of the disconnect between the nobles and the peasants, kind of just giving a backstory of the whole family, and kind of gives you the behind the scenes of Nicholas and how he didn't actually want to rule, and he didn't think he would be good, even when he was younger, and even his dad thought so. But he still ruled because he was the only son, and he was the oldest. So then it shifts to part 2, which is called Dark Clouds Gathering, and that's focusing more on the rebellions that are starting to appear. We're still not in like a lot of anger, however, but it's more focusing on like the blame and the disconnect that's continuing to grow, and how he's not really doing anything to fix it, and how there's one event that it actually focused on where Father Gapon, I think is how you pronounce his name, tries to represent the peasants and try and meet with the Tsar to give ideas on how to fix the issues, and Nicholas kind of just ignores them and sends his military instead, which causes a lot of anger amongst the peasants, and that's where we start to see the buildup actually start to happen. Then we get to part 3, where it says the storm breaks, and this is where we see the actual collapse of the family unit itself. There's a lot of war that's happening within Russia, and basically their whole military system gets annihilated. So Nicholas, having a big head at this time, decides, I'm going to go and become the leader of the general army. Well, before he leaves, him and his wife are trying to cure their only son, Alexei, who has hemophilia, because he's going to be the next ruler. And so they trust Rasputin, who's this noble statesman and like all this stuff, who says he can cure Alexei. However, he's kind of like not the greatest guy in the world, but Nicholas and Alexei, his wife, have so much desire to actually heal their son that they kind of look past it all. So Nicholas goes off to war trying to be the leader of Russian army, while he puts Alexei and Rasputin in charge. Rasputin gets rid of basically everyone on the cabinet and brings in all these people that have no brains and no business being in government, and basically very weak and stable government at this point because of the people Rasputin brought in. And so then when Nicholas comes back, there's a lot of turmoil that's happening, and the people are furious. So Nicholas tries to denounce the throne or give up the throne to either his son Alexei or to his brother. However, the people are already so mad that it's kind of a moot point at this time. And that's when we reach part 4, the final days. And this is where a group who was led by Lenin/Stalin, but the group's actual name, I'm going to butcher this name, is Bolshevik. They actually go into the palace, seize the Romanov family, and are holding them hostage for a few days. Well, when the White Army, which is the Russian army, starts to come close to actually try and rescue the Romanov family, they are executed, very brutally, might I add, in the basement of the palace. No one in history really knows if Stalin or Lenin actually called the order. However, a lot of people presume that they did. And so the author then gives us an insight into how everyone thought Stalin would be like this great guy for Russia, but we all know he ends up being terrible for the Russian government. And then it also focuses on kind of modern day Russia and how it's affected, and the outcome that came of the Romanov family and like the myths and everything that happened. As for like the theme of this book, I think the theme is kind of one, listen to your elders, because if Nicholas and Alexei had good people to listen to, they might not have had this issue, because the Romanov family had been ruling for over 300 years already. And also kind of don't, like when your emotions are in touch, we kind of forget to really trust people, and we kind of let it slide, and they kind of put their trust in the wrong guy, which led to their demise. If they hadn't been so desperate, they might not have been put in this situation. As for like the purpose of this book, I think it's really good to read. One, it kind of puts a face to, and a kind of a backstory, especially for history. We hear all about the Russian army and all that kind of stuff in history class, but this kind of actually puts like a face to the books. It gives us a backstory and kind of humanizes them. It also kind of clarifies, because at least when I was a kid, I watched the movie Anastasia, which I assume a lot of girls have seen, and that's kind of false. And we all think, we get lost in this myth, like, oh, Anastasia lives, like all this great stuff, but that's not the truth. We all know that it was actually a very brutal murder that happened, and we kind of need to honor her life in that sense, I feel. I think this story also is good for kids to read, because in high school you don't really want to listen to your parents, you don't really want to listen to anyone. This kind of teaches you, like, yes, do listen to your elders. They know what they're talking about. Even if you want to be stubborn-headed, they know. As for like my activity I was gonna do, since this obviously is more high school level, I was thinking more just like a book report, and have each of them choose a family member that they would like write in first person, and kind of do a book report how either their actions led to the downfall of Russia, or how their life was impacted from the downfall. Obviously, we all know what the ending will be, but all of them had different stories and different areas. So yeah, that's my reading reflection.